My Valentine's prank went too far. It ended our relationship forever. Valentine's Day is supposed to strengthen the bond of relationships, but mine was the polar opposite. I went too far that day, and my boyfriend ruined it all for me. I still haven't recovered. I'm down and broken, but I can't believe he would leave me because of a mere prank. As much as I am sad, I'm also offended because my boyfriend, now ex, and I have been in a relationship for almost 3 years now, and I honestly thought he understood me. But clearly he didn't, because I don't get why he should end a relationship over a prank. I am just so frustrated and sad because I truly need him back, and that's why I am here to vent and also get some advice that will help me get back my man. I soon became exhausted with the way things were going. Our second Valentine wasn't any better than the first. I remember how I had blatantly told Theo in all the obvious slangs and signals I could come up with that I wanted a wristwatch, and I was expecting that he was going to buy the watch, and without a doubt, he bought it. But in all honesty, I wish he didn't buy it. That might sound shocking to you all at first, but wait till you hear why I said I wish he didn't buy it. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was 2 days to Valentine's Day, and I went to pick up a document from his house. He had called me, asking me to pick up the documents from the wardrobe in his house and bring them for him at work because he needed them and he couldn't leave work. I was his girlfriend and apparently the only person he could trust to get them for him, and even though I was busy, I was more than happy to help him. When I got the house, I followed his specific instructions and went to check for the documents in the wardrobe. What I found there was nothing short of amazing. There was a box just at the bottom corner of the wardrobe. It was covered underneath some well-folded clothes, but that didn't matter. I had sharp eyes, and when I saw the tint of red shine through the dull black and navy blue shirts stacked on top of the box, it made me curious. I took the shirts off and saw the red box sitting there in the dark comfort of the wardrobe, and it made me wonder what marvel it held within its crevices. I was curious, and even though almost everything in me advised me against opening up that box, I still went ahead, untied the ribbon, and opened the box. And oh my, the glow that came from inside that box was enough to blind a person. The exact watch I wanted was inside the box, but that wasn't all. Theo had taken his time to buy other jewelry that complemented the watch. There was a bracelet, a necklace, and a set of earrings. And to top it all off, there was a perfume as well, one of my favorites. I was so happy, but I had to control that joy because I couldn't exactly let him know that the surprise gift he was preparing was no longer a surprise. I carefully closed the box and folded the t-shirt back into the neat pile they were in and placed them back in the box. I was giggling and smiling as I took the document he requested and took it away. Even when I took the document to the office, I saw him, and it took all the mental strength in the world to hold myself back from jumping on him and telling him how sweet he was to get me such a thoughtful gift. But I didn't want to ruin the surprise. I was a sucker for a good surprise, and even though I now knew of the things that he had bought, I wondered how he would present the gift to me. Since it was 2 days from Valentine's Day, I concluded that he wanted to do something special on Valentine's Day. So with that, I just gave him the documents he asked for, and he was very thankful to me for helping him. He went back into the office while I left the office feeling like all my dreams had come true. I thought I had taken a sneak peek into the future, and in my eyes, the future was very bright. My boyfriend now understood the importance of Valentine's Day and how much it meant to me, or at least that's what I thought. On Valentine's Day, Theo was in his normal Valentine's Day spirit, grumpy and stuck up. I honestly thought he had changed, so I was confused by this behavior, but then I imagined that he was just pretending so I wouldn't expect that he got me anything. I was excited and waited patiently. I didn't even care if we went out to a fancy restaurant or something of that sort. I was just happy to have my boyfriend start taking Valentine's Day seriously. But that was not the case because I was in his house. And after a few hours of him being so grumpy about how all the TV shows were talking about love and how couples were passing by his window dressed in red and white, he told me that he was going to bed. I was more than baffled. I was so shocked that I couldn't find the words to express just how blown my mind was. I asked him what he meant by that, and he told me that he couldn't bear all the commercialization of love being forced down his throat just so the big capitalist machines could profit off people's gullibility. My lower jaw could not hold up to my upper jaw. I just sat still and watched as he walked to his room. My boyfriend hadn't changed. He was even a lot more bitter about Valentine. You want to know what the most annoying thing was? It was that my boyfriend purposely refused to make love to me on Valentine's Day. I don't know who he was trying to spite, but it sure wasn't the big capitalist machines, because they had nothing to gain in him simply pleasuring his girlfriend, who happened to be me. But he didn't see it that way. Instead, he just kept his safe distance from me to make sure nothing transpired between the both of us. I had so many things to say, but all I asked him was that I thought he had something he wanted to give me. He looked at me like I was the most confused being in the universe and asked me what I was talking about. When I didn't give an answer, he just walked to his room and plopped into the bed. I couldn't believe this young man, so I stormed out of the house in complete rage. I didn't know what to do and where to go. I didn't want to go back to my house because then I'd be alone. And it'll just be depressing, and all the parties around were couple parties, so I would be the only single person there since everyone would come with their partner. I didn't want to do any of that, so I just stayed away from those parties as well. At the end of the day, I went home and slept in after watching some romantic movies. The next morning, I was woken up by a certain knock on my door. When I went to check who it was, I couldn't believe it. It was my best friend, Mabel. She had come to share stories of just how wonderful her Valentine was. The words she said to me made me so jealous that I couldn't help but burst into tears. Mabel asked me what was wrong, and I told her that I was just so happy for her. I got a text from Theo. It was a good morning text. He made sure to send me one every day, and each day the texts got sweeter and sweeter. Mabel then asked me how my Valentine's Day went, and I couldn't tell her that mine sucked because I had bragged about how that year was going to be different and how Theo had changed his views on Valentine's Day. So to protect my pride, I told Mabel that it went perfectly well and that I had never been happier in my entire life. I made up a whole story about Theo getting me a gift that I never expected, and when Mabel asked me if she could see the gift, I told her she would see it when I wore it. She was perplexed by all the mystery, but chose to let me be. The next morning, just as the day was beginning in my humble confectioner's shop, I saw Theo walk in with a bouquet of flowers in hand, a basket filled with God knows what. There was a trumpeter following behind him, playing a jazz rendition of my favorite pop song. Everyone in the shop turned their attention to me. It was so romantic that I was led to tears. Theo placed the basket on the counter, leaned over, and gave me a kiss, then told me that I am his, and he is mine. I had never blushed so much in my entire life. Everyone in the shop clapped and cheered for us. Inside the basket were bottles of wine and that red box that I discovered inside his wardrobe a few days before Valentine's Day. That was when my eyes darkened. Was my boyfriend too ashamed to give things to me on Valentine's Day? I was just appalled by this. The realization that I waited and expected that whole day just made me question everything. Sure, he was romantic, as you can testify. But how could the most romantic person I know not care about the most romantic day in history? I felt embarrassed. I looked at the smiles on people's faces, and I didn't see smiles of people that were happy for me. Instead, I saw their smiles as a mockery of some sort. I imagined them thinking the absolute worst of me. I imagined them saying things like, Theo didn't value me because if he did, then I would have gotten those gifts on Valentine's Day instead of 2 days after. I was so fed up and angry with how embarrassed I was. And this made me make a vow. Right there and then, I decided to make sure Theo felt the same shame I felt on our second Valentine's Day together. And I was definitely going to live up to my vow. I was going to make our next Valentine's Day a day he could never forget. So this year, I decided to spice things up and make my vow come to pass. I spent a good part of my year envisioning just how I'd make Theo care about Valentine's Day. I wanted him to feel the same frustration and anger I felt whenever he gave me a big speech about how Valentine's Day was created by capitalists to supplant us. I wanted him to feel angry, just like I did whenever he would refuse to do things he'd normally do with ease and joy just because he didn't want to look basic. That was my conclusion, that Theo felt he was better than all of us who loved Valentine's Day, and that he felt like we were stupid and he was the wise one. I wanted to make him pay for that. So I planned everything, even the vehicle I was going to use that day. I was going to pull off the biggest prank I had done in my entire life, and I wasn't thinking about the consequences it would bring. I just wanted my boyfriend to feel my aggravation and my pain. I wanted him to feel left out. I didn't care about all the gifts he gave me on my birthdays, on Halloween, on Christmas, on Easter, and any other chance he got. I didn't care about all the weekend dates he planned out of the blue just to surprise me and make me feel good. I didn't care about any of those. It was the one day of the year that he didn't do anything that I decided to hold against him. And it got a lot worse. Anger turned to resentment, and before I knew it, whenever I looked at my boyfriend, all I could see were his shortcomings. On the day of Valentine, I didn't call him or go to his place like I usually do. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. I needed him to taste what Valentine's Day was like without me calling him or texting him or even knocking at his doorstep like a desperate woman with nothing to do. I had a business that made so much money during the Valentine season that it was a wonder how I had the time to flock around him like I usually did. I decided I was going to treat myself like the queen that I was, and I was going to go to a fancy restaurant and treat myself to all the Valentine goodness I had been missing since I started dating Theo. So, what I did was I made sure to document my entire day. I made videos of myself and only myself, not including the person I went out with. Yeah, you heard right. I didn't go out alone. I went out with someone else that was not my boyfriend, but don't think much of it. He was just to be my cameraman, taking pictures of me in ways that were supposed to make my boyfriend jealous. He made videos of me stepping out of the car and his hand holding my hand as he helped me out of the car. He made a video of me being fed. All he did was show his hands like a first-person shooter game, but he made sure not to show himself. I looked so bedazzled in my pictures. I ate and had a good time with myself. I even wore an engagement ring and took a picture of it, as well as a picture of the camera guy's hand holding my hand, which had the ring on. It looked like the most romance-infused pictures of all time, and I was ready to start taunting my boyfriend with the pictures I had taken, but then I had a thought. As though all the pictures I had taken were not enough, I decided to do another that was just too far. I booked a hotel room, which was an honest miracle to get on Valentine's Day, and in the hotel I made the camera guy hold my chin softly while I closed my eyes, blushed, and smiled so brightly, and then he took a picture of that as well. I decorated the bed with roses and took pictures of myself on the bed as well. At the end of the day, I began posting the pictures on all my social media accounts I knew Theo was following, and every single picture was more daring than the last. The comments started pouring in. People were telling me congratulations, and those who knew of my relationship with Theo were so happy that he had finally popped the question. They thought the man whose hands were in the picture was Theo, but I knew if Theo was seeing those pictures, he would be losing it because he would know that was not him, given that he was at home all day, rolling in his bed and sleeping like a koala. I had made the pictures to look like I was now engaged, and I was having the best Valentine's Day ever. The caption didn't help as well. I used captions like, "Thanks for a wonderful Valentine's Day, babe." It was the perfect prank. I wanted Theo to be jealous. I needed him to react in any way at all, to let me know that if he didn't sit up, I could be swept away from him just like that, in the blink of an eye or the snap of a finger. Everything was perfect. All I had to do now was wait and see how things would turn out. And I honestly had high hopes and positive expectations of how things would turn out. It was like I was being delusional. I thought that me telling Theo that it was a prank would be enough to solve everything, but I didn't know that the prank was going to be my very undoing. I waited till for some time, and soon I got a call from Theo, but I didn't answer. I felt like I was the one with the power now. He called again and again, but each time I chose to ignore his call. He came to my house a few minutes later and knocked on the door, but I didn't care to check who it was. I was enjoying everything. This was the most attention I had gotten on Valentine's Day, and I was enjoying it. When Theo had knocked on my door and called my name for almost 10 minutes and I wasn't answering, he assumed that I wasn't at home. He called my number, but I made sure my phone was silenced so it wouldn't ring out. Update. 2 weeks went by, and not a single word from Theo. I was worried sick, and all I wanted to do was talk to him and tell him that it was all a misunderstanding. I tried reaching out to all of his friends I knew, and no one knew where he was, or at least no one was willing to tell me. I saw him a few days later in front of his house when I wanted to go check if he was home, and I ran at him, trying to hug him, but he pushed me away like I was a stranger to him. I told him that it was me, his girlfriend, and he told me he didn't have a girlfriend. He said he doesn't date people that were engaged. I tried to explain to him that it was a prank, and he asked me what sort of sick and stupid person would go to such an extent to pull such an extreme prank. I couldn't believe what he said, and I actually thought about it. I took the prank a bit too far. He told me that I was lying and that I should stay away from him. I tried explaining even further, but it was like the more I spoke, the more repulsive he found me. He then asked me a question that just broke me. He asked me why he should believe that it was a prank, and most importantly, why I would carry out such a prank, asking what I was hoping to achieve. It was like a blade in my throat that I was trying to spit out, but I told him the petty reason for me doing that, and he shook his head and asked me if all the other things he did for me weren't enough. I was speechless. He told me that most of my friends I was jealous of didn't get half of the gifts, attention, and romance I got from him all year round, but because of one simplistic day, I had to go ruin the perfect thing we had going. He told me that if that was the kind of person I was, he'd rather be alone than be in a relationship with me. I cried and begged, but his mind was made up. He said he was done with my toxicity, then he walked away, leaving me in tears. I am heartbroken, and I feel terrible.